Well, let's come back to what I was talking about, folk psychology, and I mentioned connectionism, and how on this view it looks like beliefs and desires are not stored in a discrete way in the brain. Okay, and some people draw the moral from that, because that information is stored in the brain in this hideously sort of overlapping and messy way. So you can't point to any bit that is, when I think of myself as recalling a piece of information, you can't point to any discrete bit of activity in my brain that is the recalling of that information. Some people draw the conclusion from that beliefs and desires don't really exist, because as we conceptualize them, they're discrete items of information that can be separately, individually recalled and activated and used in reasoning. And according to this picture, that doesn't happen. So really all we have here is a sort of way of talking. Maybe what happened was, when I performed a particular action, I sort of thought of that bit of information as I was performing it. Maybe I just thought, oh, I'll do it for this reason. But that doesn't show that that's actually what caused me to do it. Maybe the causes were much more complex than that. So that's a sort of eliminativism about belief. It's saying that the folk conception of how the mind works is wrong. Whether that would involve actually giving up the folk conception is another idea, whether we could revise it, whether we could replace it with something, and so on and so forth. And this is a view that's associated particularly with Paul and Patricia Churchland, who argued that folk psychology.
But let me just be clear, what's being eliminated there is kind of the, I don't want to say the details of your conception of consciousness, but the notion of consciousness itself is not, or mind is not being eliminated, but the structure of your conception of it is just really off the mark and doesn't map onto anything physical. And so it's like the texture of your conception of consciousness is being eliminated, but not necessarily the phenomenon of consciousness.
Well, that was I was just using that there as an analogy for how reflection on on theories of how the mind is structured might lead us to revise our folk picture in relation there to belief and desire. Now I want to say a similar thing could happen with relation to consciousness. We have this idea of consciousness as this sort of inner light show, a sound and light show, this technicolor phenomenology. And the idea is that, the senses gather information. This is kind of presented to us sort of internally, like this is on a sort of screen or something, and then we react to this inner screen. And so when I have, if I stub my toe, there is this inner sort of awful feeling that sort of happens inside me, and I'm sort of aware of that inner feeling and I react to it, and it's a sort of intermediary between me and the world. There is the pain, there is this thing, the pain that is caused by the damage to my body and to which I react. And I think that's kind of the picture. I'm not sure how far it's embedded in folk psychology, but it's one that you very easily get.
Yeah, it's very intuitively appealing, the idea that it is the pain I feel when my hand touches the fire that gets me to react. That's the way we talk, and
it's very plausible when you think about colours and things, because I guess the first sort of the most natural way, I guess, of thinking about colours is that they're sort of out there painted on the world. That red and green, I can see the blue sky there, the blue's out there. But of course, it doesn't take a lot of knowledge, a lot of reflection on the nature of colour perception and the physics involved and so on to realise that in a sense it's the sky is no more objectively blue.
Right.
The blue is a kind of reaction that's dependent on my sense organs, and to other creatures it might look quite different, and to aliens it might look green, or a totally different colour. To insects it presumably does, and which is the right colour. Which is the sky really? Well, it isn't really any of them. It's just reflecting light of certain wavelengths, really. It's all it's doing, and the colours are in a sense in us. And so what's happening is that this blueness is actually in here. I'm reacting to the blueness. And I can wonder whether this blueness that I have when I look at the sky is the same as the blueness you have when you look at the sky. Maybe your blueness is more like green. Yellowness.
I still remember the moment in my childhood when this prospect first came up in a conversation with a friend. I was about 8 or 9 years old, and for some reason I got chills just thinking, whoa, maybe what you see when the red you see isn't the red. I don't know. Right now it doesn't seem. Right now the question is, what does that even mean? Is because there's no way of doing the experiment. If you become the person, you've lost your own frame of reference. So it's almost a meaningless question. But anyway, go ahead.
And then, just as the side, and then it has this wonderful example of this where someone says, "Okay, well, let's resolve this," and they build a kind of brain interface device. And so you put on the sort of helmet, and I put on the helmet, and we kind of have the interface device, and we plug into the interface, and we both look at the sky.
Yep, that's red, or that. Well, yep, that's blue.
Let's say we plug it in, and I go, "No, gosh, look, it's yellow." Bob sees the sky as yellow.
Yeah.
And then the guy who's operating the device says, "Oh, hang on a moment, just been a fault." And he bends down the machine, he takes out the connecting pin, and he inverts it 180 degrees and plugs it back in. And I say, "Oh, now it's blue." Now, which is the right way round for the pin to be? How do you calibrate the machine?
Mm-hmm. I'll have to ponder that too.
It's impossible to calibrate the machine, is the point.
That's kind of the point I was making. In other words, there's no way of doing the experiment.
There's no way of doing it, even in principle.
Right.
It's not something we could sort out with sufficient brain technology.
Right.
Because these things are private in a way that is they're not just inside your skull and therefore difficult to access. They are inside your subjectivity or something. Mm-hmm. There's absolutely no way that anyone but you can access them. And then, of course, this raises the question, well, what are you exactly? This you is not you, the physical organism, because that we can get inside and look at.
Right.
It's you, and it doesn't take you far along this route before you're getting to something a little bit like substance dualism again.
Right. Well, substance dualism is intuitively appealing. It's just that science, as we get better at explaining behavior and neurology marches on, you just start to think, well, maybe you could have an exhaustive description of the behavior of the animal that was sheerly physical, in which case certainly no kind of interactive dualism would make sense, and then it casts doubt on the whole thing. But anyway,
exactly, and that's the drift of the whole thing. So we can at least entertain the idea that certain aspects of our folk conception, of our folk psychology, are wrong, maybe need revision, maybe even need abandoning. Now, the element, the aspect of that conception that I'm focusing on here is this conception of ourselves as having this inner phenomenology, these inner qualia is the word that's used. These inner experiences of blue that are not the blueness of the sky, but the blueness of my experience of the sky, which might be quite. We both agree that the sky is blue. It's a question of whether our inner experience of the blue sky is the same.
Yeah, we both agree the sky is blue because when we were young, somebody pointed to the sky and said, "That's blue."
and we call things that cause this experience blue, and we both do that, even if this experience is different in each of us. Right, and now, so that I'm saying is, it's either part of the folk conception or something that very easily comes out of the folk conception. It doesn't take long to get people thinking this way. As you say, you had this kind of sort of revelatory moment. I think many people have that sort of thing in childhood. It's a very natural way. Once you start reflecting upon your own experience, it's a very, very natural way to go. And some people find it absolutely impossible to doubt that it's correct.